Replacing only the glass on Apple Watches is tricky, but it's especially tricky on the Apple Watch Series 7 and Series 8. Finding educational content on how to replace the glass only on a Series 7 and a Series 8 is difficult because the repair itself is difficult. There are very few videos online showing how to replace only the glass on these particular models. In this video, I'm going to be critiquing a few of them. Some show what not to do, and others show what to do, but they don't really give a good explanation about what they're doing as they're doing it. So that's one of the things that I'm going to be adding into their videos, trying to get behind their thought process of what they're doing and why. I myself have repaired thousands of Apple Watches, and over the last 5 years have posted almost 100 videos covering almost every single Apple Watch series and the repairs within those models themselves. Let's get into the videos. In this particular video, we see that we have a brand new Series 7. He's going to use some hot air to warm it up, which I would not really recommend. And we're going to take a pry tool and stick it in, and I can tell that he's already in the wrong spot. He's probably done previous models, but you can see that he's automatically delaminated the layers of the display. There's definitely no more image on this display. And it looks like he's continuing to try and go around and separate the bezel from the display there. You can see, but he finally figured it out. The bezel's attached to the display. You can see the gold tint on the glass there. He has half of the display on the glass still, so this display is definitely gone. He is carefully removing the flex cables the way I would, so that's good. And I'm really glad that he put this video out in general, just because it's going to give us a good idea of things not to do in the during a screen repair. You can see that he's checking the bezel. It is completely infused into the display. There is no removing the bezel from this particular display. You can see there when he lines it up, that's how this display should come off of the watch. It shouldn't come off separate, otherwise you're going to just completely destroy the display like he has in this case. And the NFC, he can tell that it isn't removable. And you can see here he cut off half the bezel in trying to figure out how to take off the glass from the display. Now he's going to carefully stick a plastic piece in so that he can insert his wire and cut. I can tell that he's probably done some of the other models because of his technique here. You can see that he's removed the glass, which all of this is just from this point on is just pure education because I don't know if he knows, but he's already completely damaged the display. So get a look at the glass there, removing the adhesive. See all of the delamination that happened there. He's gonna go ahead and clean it and add an OCA sheet. Cut it off, just totally fine, except you're going to have kind of a jagged edge, and this is kind of unnecessary at this point because this display is not coming back to life. It's like he's gonna adhere the display to it, laminate it, and put it back on for testing. Obviously it's not going to work. This gives you a good idea of how tricky it is for even those ones that probably are experienced to do the repair. Here we have another video by Mr. Phone Doctor. You can see everything looks like it's working properly. We've got a nice crack in the top, which is definitely going to come into play in this video. You can see everything works just fine there. Series 7 45mm. Gonna start with looks like some isopropyl alcohol all around the border. That's totally fine to do on this model. We're not contending with a gasket or a force touch. It looks like he's going in with a razor blade, which isn't something I'd recommend because you can end up damaging the frame, scraping it. It looks like the screen has probably come off before because it should not come off this easy. He's probably taken this off before doing the video. And yeah, because it should never come up as easily as it just did. He's going to go around the border with plastic, which is how I would do it as well. Yeah, and that screen came off a little too easy, but you know, that's the technique that you'd use with the plastic. And everything still works, so that's good. It's like he's getting a pry tool here and dipping it in isopropyl alcohol to remove it, which is totally fine. And now he's taking a Dremel to cut some of the glass off that edge so that he can insert a razor blade in. Now this is definitely something I would not do because you're going to cause little fine grains of glass to be embedded there that the wire could easily pick up and drag. Isopropyl alcohol and plastic, that's totally fine technique to start inserting into the glass so that you can assist the wire in cutting in the right spot. It looks like they're going to put on a heat plate with some suction there. The same technique I'd use. Now I would secure the screen a little bit better with a special technique that I have that he's not doing here, but totally fine for you know, if you can get away with it. So he's got his wire started with the plastic guide there, and he's going to start cutting into it. Now this is where I'd be extremely concerned about having used a Dremel, because probably end up scraping the display with a shard of glass that was or from the dust from cutting with the Dremel. So I would avoid doing that. And you can see that he's having to apply pressure here because the suction of this heat plate isn't cutting it. That display wants to move around and walk around too much. He's having to push down with his hand to keep the display from not moving, which is only going to cause more pressure on that wire as you're cutting the display, and you're definitely going to be dragging stuff along the display if you do that. So this is not the best way to hold the display so that it doesn't move around. But yeah, you can see that he was successful in getting the glass off, which is good. But let's see how the display looks when he's done. Now, this is a completely acceptable way to remove the adhesive. However, if you go too quickly, you're going to get some delamination. Looks like you definitely got some there along that side edge. And I can already see lines in the display, which means that he definitely was dragging some stuff with the wire along the display. You use his little magic eraser here and then get some of that OCA off of there, and you can see the initial crack at the top of the display there. You can see where there was some delamination, and all along that left side, tons of delamination of the display layers, which won't really affect functionality. It's going to more be cosmetic. And those two scrapes that are going down, you can see they start where the wire started from where he cut, so they were dragging some shards of glass along the way as he was cutting. Looks like everything's still working, touch is still good. Everything should work. We've just got a lot of cosmetic issues with this particular repair that make it somewhat unpleasant to look at. It would definitely bug me if that was my screen. One of the best things that he can do would be to use Loca in place of OCA. Because the Loca will kind of fill in some of the scratches and make them somewhat disappear. Those are pretty deep, so they're probably not going to go all the way away, but it's definitely going to be less apparent than if you used a regular OCA sheet on the glass. So right call here. Obviously we're still going to have plenty of delamination there on that what now is the top edge. You can see he used tons of Loca, so we're going to get a whole lot of squeeze out on this particular screen. Definitely not something that I would recommend. That was a ton of Loca. You can see it squeezing out everywhere. It's going to be really messy. Definitely needed a lot less drops than this for this particular repair. But you can clean that up okay. Looks like he's cleaned it all the way, but we still see the delamination there, in particular on the top and the left side. You can see definite delamination from the process of removing the glass with all the pressure he had from the wire pushing down on the display. You can see those two lines have kind of disappeared even though they're still there. You catch the light just right, you'll see them. And here we've got another video that's going to show us, in my opinion, a slightly better way of doing it. This is closer to a perfect repair. We've got the same 45mm Series 7. Looks like it's brand new. Can't see a reason for actually going through their process of doing this, but I think this was just for educational purposes, which is totally fine in my book. He's using plastic to go around the border. Looks like he's adding some a little bit of isopropyl alcohol. This is completely legit, a way to do it. I would be inserting a pry tool to help kind of give a little bit of pressure to help start this, but you know, he might have taken that screen off before because that did come off a little easier than it should have. Everything tests fine still, which is good. He's gonna go through the process of removing the display. He's got a spudger kind of pushing back the flex cables on the heat pad there. Completely acceptable. That's how I would do it. A little bit of isopropyl alcohol. Good technique. I like the way he's doing this. Peel back the sticker. Peeling it back quite far here, but all right, now he's gonna use a spudger here to flip up the flaps and carefully wiggle out the flex cable there. Now I can see he's already got a plastic wedged into the display. Now this does concern me a little bit with getting in the wrong layer. He might have gotten in the wrong layer of the display. There are a few layers you can kind of get away with damaging with it still looking or working right, but so far so good from what I can tell. Add some isopropyl alcohol so it doesn't stick again, and it looks like he definitely cut through the first layer of the display. This film here is something you can kind of get away with damaging, but anything below that you're definitely going to have issues with the display. It's going to leave you with kind of this oily finish to remove that first one. You can kind of see that oily glare there. You kind of need that top layer to have a proper repair. But in the end, this one should turn out fine if he doesn't damage it anymore. So there might be some issues with the touch being finicky. Obviously, we can't tell with it being sped up like this if the touch is perfect. But it looks like it's working for the most part. So he's gotten away with it. So it looks like we've got some OCA here that he's got installed. And we're gonna line up the display. Totally good so far. And we're gonna put that in a laminator there. Using a combination of heat, negative pressure, and then positive force on it, it'll laminate the display. An autoclave to remove any of the bubbles, and that display looks pretty good. You can see kind of the edge of the glass is poking out. Means he didn't have it perfectly centered, but it's probably close enough that it'll sit fine in the watch. Pushing in the flex cables there with the little arms, that's the way to go. Flip down the flaps there and stick the sticker back. So far this is a very good repair. I wish he didn't cut that first layer of the display, but everything should look fine and work fine in this repair. And it looks good. All right, now here's another by Zorba Mobile. Using my favorite pry tool to get in, these quantly curved pry tool to start, and then he switches over to a plastic. This is exactly how I do these repairs on the daily. Using the plastic to go around. Looks like this one has not been opened before, as it's definitely giving him the right amount of resistance everywhere around the display that it should. This is what I would expect to see if you're opening the watch for the first time, which we haven't seen them look like this in the other ones, so this is good. And you can see the reason why this one's being replaced is because it got scuffed there on the top. It's not cracked or anything, so he should have a pretty easy time repairing this particular one. And he's using the plastic there to help loosen the flex cables there from the adhesive that's holding onto the back of the display. And rolling off the sticker there, totally fine. The stickers are really fragile, so whatever you can do to save them is good. Let's see what head technique he uses to separate the glass. I'm gonna put a little piece of tape, which add a couple layers of tape on there. Not exactly sure why he's doing that, because there's no cracks on it, but and we're gonna cut into the display. Now, he didn't do this with a guide. Maybe he did start with a little bit of slice to make sure he's in the right level, but we're not gonna really see in this video exactly how he entered the screen there. But it looks like he's done it nicely. You know exactly, if you know that you've done it right if when you take it off, it looks like you've gotten most of the adhesive left on the display. That way you have less risk of damaging the display if you've gotten on top of the adhesive, just like he has here. The glass has very little adhesive on it, and the display has most of the adhesive. That's how I like them to come out. He's going to use a little isopropyl alcohol here in a spray bottle and his finger to kind of rub around the adhesive. This is a good technique to use instead of wire wicking it, because you could potentially delaminate the edges. So he's going about this in the correct manner. You have a little bit less. This is the way that I would do it. This is the way that I do it on the Series 7s when I'm doing a glass only. Now he's reconnecting it to test it. Everything looks good from this angle on that display. Everything's turning out to be, in my opinion, a perfect repair so far. I can tell that the bezel's completely intact. Didn't damage the bezel in removing anything, so that's really good. The display and touch look perfect. We've got a new glass with the OCA installed. He's got his little black sticky mat to help hold that glass when he goes to install it. Got a really nice clean workstation, and he's gonna peel off the protector for the OCA and install the display. Doing this by eye, getting everything perfect, feeling it with your fingers, lining it up. That looks really good. He's got a cutout there in this little foam mat, if you look really carefully, that he's putting one of the brackets in that otherwise could get bent in the lamination process. It's going to go and laminate that the same way with that vacuum with a negative pressure inside and a positive force going down it with a heat plate to laminate that display. Doesn't take too much time to do the lamination process. You can see as he pulls this out, the little cutout there in that mat. But yeah, a couple little bubbles that need to go and be removed from the debubbler or the autoclave. You can see that's a screen that's looking brand new. Now he's going to cure this particular type of OCA under UV light for a minute. And it looks like he's already installed it and everything's testing perfectly. This repair went as smooth as they go. This is how I hope every time I do a watch to come out with this type of result. This is the result I give for sure with my customer. Now he's really being, maybe he was more thorough with the adhesive there, but I would definitely be more thorough with the amount of adhesive and the consistency around the border to make sure I have much resistance as I possibly could. But so far this was probably the best one we've seen so far. I like what he was able to accomplish in this video. No delamination at all. And here we're actually going to get a better view of a world, an actual damaged glass here. And this is probably one of the better ways to do it. Looks like he's taking a UV resin to help kind of seal those cracks up. This will help keep the glass together, curing that in a UV light so that the resin cures. I'm going to take that over to a heat plate and warm this up, help loosen that adhesive. Totally fine in this model because we're not dealing with a bezel. We're not dealing with a gasket. We're just dealing with the bezel that's adhered to the display. Carefully working around with the plastic. Again, very good technique here. This is a good way to do it. Testing everything to make sure it's still working. Beautiful. Carefully peeling back the sticker. Flipping up the flaps there so that he can disconnect the display from the flex. Now we're going to put it back on our vacuum heat plate. Some fun cinematic shots there. Got some adhesive, some tape on there so that we can get a nice suction on there. Not really showing again how the wire goes in there, but he's using a 0.02 millimeter wire, which is probably the thinnest you can come by for the molybdenum wire there. And cut in through it, only pulling in one direction. Very good technique here. Very good technique. I'm gonna go over it one more time because it tends to want to stick again once it's kind of settled. You can see here, beautiful, the amount of adhesive that was left on the display here, awesome. And the glass stayed intact, which means the UV resin did what it's supposed to. He's warming it back up with some isopropyl alcohol to help loosen the adhesive. Carefully rubbing it with his finger, and again, look at this beautiful display. No scratches on it. We've got our OCA with our glass with OCA, and this technique here helps remove any dust and static. You go ahead and stick the display there on the glass, put it in the laminator. Went through the same process like he did in his other video. In the autoclave, remove any of those remaining bubbles. Put it in the UV light to cure. Come out with a brand new looking display. If you don't have a UV light, then you can just have them walk out in the sun for an hour or two and it'll do the same thing. Gonna connect it up, glue it down. Again, looks like they're not being as thorough, but they're being a little bit more thorough with the glue. Pushing it down. And there we go with our finished product. Looking really good. This is the level that I try to achieve every time I do a repair for somebody, every day.